like I literally am the statistic because I'm Black, I'm Puerto Rican, I come from a single parent household. My father was an alcoholic. Um, I had cousins and family who were, running with gangs that were not, they were, rival gangs. I had a cousin, my cousin, my older cousin had a drive-by shooting on his house when I was like probably 10 years old. And then they literally like moved out of the neighborhood because it just was too unsafe for him and his sister and his mother and father. You know, when I was about, I would say 17, I had an issue with this guy, and he ends up pulling a gun to the side of my head, and he pulled the trigger, and it clicked. It didn't go up. Everything right there would have been, my story would have been done right then and there. I was probably about 17 when that happened, maybe 18. But that's I went through stuff like that. When I graduated high school, my mother and I were homeless for a while. So we were bouncing from, this couch to maybe that couch to someone's basement that they kind of had furnished a little bit. It took my mother months and months and months to get us to a place where we can have an apartment again. I had the opportunity to play football when I graduated high school. My mother, being a school teacher, really wanted the best for me, for her son. And I have a brother who passed away, and I can probably have 24 friends who were either killed or spent at least a year or more in prison before I was like 21 years old. But anyhow, so I did have the opportunity to play, as you were mentioning. I played 1 year in Kansas during college, and then I destroyed my knee. And for me, football was like my entire world. And I came back home. Like, going to Kansas was like a fresh start for me. Like, I was leaving all this shit behind me, all these things that were like distractions for me, an abusive household, all these things that were distractions for me, that I wasn't necessarily, I didn't want to be necessarily a part of those things, but it just kind of was, it just kind of is. And so I went to Kansas, and then just to think that here's my shot, here's my chance to get out of this stuff. And then I get thrown right back into the Lions den when I came back home. And then for years, I was just kind of like finding my way. I was just in this, I didn't know what the hell to do. I was just in this fog. I didn't have the grades to get into a public, university like Rutgers University. I didn't have college credits. I was kind of working these little odd jobs, and I was just in this funk. I was in this fog. I didn't know how to get out of it. I just didn't know how to get out of it. I really didn't.
But you did, and you ultimately did. So then, what switched for you? Like, what was that thing that was like that clicked, and you were like, I'm going to do this?
So to answer that briefly, I think that growing up Black can pull you in different directions, and I talk about that in the video as well. Growing up Black pulls you in different directions. You're expected to be something. The world thinks you're this way. You have your own personal, like you know who you are, and you're being pulled in all sorts of different. You should be a great athlete. You probably are good at basketball, and you must love rap. Can you rap? You sag your pants. Your hat should look backwards. Like, oh, you can't like punk rock. You can't like these other things, right? You don't play golf. So you're being pushed and pulled the entire time. So I was dealing with all these pushes and pulls. And so when I was 25, funny story, I tell people all the time, this is honest to God how it happened. My mother had this fake leather sofa thing in our apartment. And I was laying down one summer, and my younger brother, who's 5 years younger than I am, Christopher, was just getting into University of Delaware, where he gets a degree in finance. He's crushing it in Manhattan, by the way. Shout out to my brother Christopher. He's a VP for Bank of America right now. Yeah, 30 years old. Yeah, VP, crushing it. So anyhow, I was literally laying on my mother's sofa, and I tell the story every single time because it's the honest to God's truth. I was laying there. It was a hot summer. I didn't have any money. I didn't have a summer job. I didn't have a haircut, similar to his COVID days, but worse. and it just snapped. My skin was sticking to the sofa. I felt grimy, and I said, "This can't be it, man. This cannot be your story, Tommy. Like you're a smart, intelligent guy. My mother did all the best things she could to give me the best upbringing, even though maybe she didn't know I was doing certain things, growing up black, being pulled in different directions. You know, I was laying there, and it just snapped. I said, "This is it. This is not how your story's gonna be written, man. Get yourself up, and you're gonna go to school. You're gonna become an engineer, and you're gonna get out of this." And honestly, God, that's exactly how it happened. Just a light bulb went off my head, and from that point, it was a 180. Just I wanted to do it, and it was a 180.
You were at your lowest point and you just, you committed to yourself at that moment, never again.
Never again. At that moment, yep, yeah. I mean, I was just so many other things going on at that point. But I remember just laying there, and like my skin was sticking to this fake leather sofa, and it was hot. And because I didn't have the money, I didn't want to put the air conditioning on because I don't want to be the one to run the bill up. And yeah, it was like the grimiest, worst feeling I ever had about myself, and just physically and mentally, just like, this is it, no way.
So, so 25 to 33, you invest your time in getting an undergraduate engineering degree and a graduate engineering degree from Georgia Tech. And so let's fast forward now. You have this incredible early life experience where you are the statistic. It takes you some time, but you pull it together. You graduate from one of the most prestigious institutions in the nation. We don't have to, well, let's talk about you mentioned your search for a job. How many applications would you say that you put in, and what was that process?
So honestly, in the first six, I'll give you two numbers: the first 6 months and probably year to date. The first 6 months, post graduation, I probably put about, I would say maybe 30. I thought these were like the 30 companies I'd want to work for, and then when that didn't happen, I would say I'm probably eclipsing at this point. I'm in the hundreds, but it's probably like, I couldn't even tell you. It honestly might be 300 or 400, because I've applied to companies in different states at all different levels, on companies I didn't even know existed before this. Um, so I would say maybe three or four, honestly, 300 or 400 year to date.
And you had a very interesting insight. A lot of these companies, their hiring process, the first interaction with a candidate is that algorithm. So,
Yeah.
so tell me about uh, about your insights there.
Yeah, I think that's really frustrating, because applying to one company takes energy and effort, because they still want you. Sometimes, a lot of times, they still want you to fill out all these, fill out the blanks, right? You're giving them your resume, you're uploading it, but they still want you to tell them about your work history, and like all the contacts for the last 2 or 3 years of your life. And so, uh, I forgot who told me, or who kind of was like, "Hey, you're probably not getting through," because I was submitting these resumes, and these companies use a separate outsourced company, a software program that basically scans your resume, looks for keywords such as like years of work history, companies you work for, other keyword terms probably that are related to the job you're going for. And the feedback I was getting was, you're probably not even getting in front of an HR person, because the system is kicking you out before you even get there. And probably what has hurt me the most is being that late bloomer in life, not having that pedigree, the pedigree of work history, even though I had a pedigree of education. And I think, not necessarily knowing people growing up, the way I grew up, I didn't know anybody. I mean, I don't have anybody in my immediate family that was someone of someone at any company. I couldn't just say, "Hey, Dad, can you tap so and so on the shoulder because they know so and so." I don't know. I don't have I don't I don't have anybody like that in my family.